Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Agents of Change, where we talk with people whose work is helping transform our relationship with the natural world. Today, we have Dr. Erika Servin Zamora, a veterinary scientist and leading voice in amphibian conservation, especially the iconic axolotl, Ambystoma mexicanum. She's a researcher, a teacher, and the author of the wonderfully accessible guide, Mi Ajolote en Casa, My Axolotl at Home. She's also at the forefront of cutting-edge strategies in conservation science, including cryopreservation research for amphibian embryos, a potential game changer for saving endangered species. Erika, welcome.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here with you and sharing today, talking about the amazing axolotls.
Perfect. I'm so happy to have you here too. To start, can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, your background, where you are now, and what your work looks like day to day?
Well, I am Mexican, where I work and I make my research here in Mexico City. And about me, I am a veterinarian. I studied at the National Autonomous University of Mexico a long time ago. And almost from the beginning, I like to work with wild animals. For me, it was amazing to know and to understand wild animals. But 20 years ago, the axolotl was not as popular as is right now. So the first time that I met the axolotls was in a museum. I watched it in a museum that shows biodiversity of Mexico, and I find out that in a little aquarium in the back of the museum, I know the axolotls there, and I'm really curious. I really like to watch what the move. I never saw an animal like that. And when I read that this species is in critical endanger, I was more fascinated to learn more about this species.
That's
So
amazing because I was just about to ask you why the axolotls. I mean, from all the animals you could have chosen. So that's a great explanation. And it just makes so much sense when you think, okay, they are very interesting animals that they have like these almost mysterious qualities like the regeneration. They seem like to be the superheroes of the animal world. Tell us a little bit more about these animals.
you're right. When we learn more about the axolots, the axolot in fact represent an Aztec god. And this Aztec god has the power to transform in everything he wanted. In fact, this Aztec god was a little bit punishment and put in the shape of an axolotl right there in the water. But biological, this species has superpowers. They can regenerate tissues as bones, nervous system, muscles. If some the predator try to eat them, the axolotl can regenerate parts of their body. In fact, they are amphibians, but they are not making the metamorphosis as the other amphibians. They keep in the water their whole life. And it's also something that it's not very common in the amphibian world. And most of them make this metamorphosis to aquatic animal, to a terrestrial animal. So it's amazing that the axolotl, in fact, keeps in the child shape the entire life.
And I think that would explain their cute faces and how you can see axolotls pretty much in any cartoon, and they tend to be portrayed as very cute. Are they really that cute in their natural environment? I mean, they do look like a very, very cute animal. And they have interesting features.
No, no, no. In real life, axolotls are also amazing in that point of view. They are really cute. They are really calm animals, very, very zen, quiet, relaxed. They don't worry about problems. They don't worry of anything, just smiling the whole time. They are very nice with each other. The only exception is when they are teenagers. When they are teenagers, they fight each other, as we also do that with our brothers.
Yes.
They do the same when they are teenagers. But when they get to the adult stage, they are really relaxed. In fact, when you take care of them, they can recognize you. They know that you are the person that take care of them, and they just be really, really relaxed and let them be touched and everything. They're really nice animals.
And I think that's why so many people nowadays all over the world are choosing them as pets. Which brings me to my next question, because I know that in your career you created manuals and resources devoted to axolotls, veterinary, and their care. So I suppose filling a gap in the amphibian health and the husbandry knowledge, it was a very important thing to do at the time. Can you tell us what challenges veterinaries face with amphibians like the axolotl, and what breakthroughs you've seen in better supporting their health?
That's a very good question because it's something that we should be aware when we have an axolotl as a pet. The axolots are very strong animals. They can adapt to many environments, but at the same time, they are very sensitive to the environment. So they don't like stress. They don't like dirty water or food that is not good and digestible for them. So at the same time, they are strong, but they need special care and a special environment and aquarium. And if we are going to have an axolot as a pet, the first thing is we need to know what are their needs to cover it and to make it very happy in our aquarium. So it's a big challenge because when you have this sensitive animal in a small aquarium, you have to recreate a little environment the same that the axolot has to have in the natural habitat. So you are building a little habitat just to keep them axolot happy and healthy in there. And about the veterinary medicine, it's very challenging because we don't have any books or we don't have any subjects in the career that teach us about the axolotl disease. So by now we are doing some research to make some diagnoses and some treatments, especially for axolotls because they are also sensitive to other chemicals and medication. So we are doing research in order to get the best veterinary care of the axolotls. But it's difficult, and most of the veterinarians, we didn't learn that at school.
That's very interesting, and I suppose that was a slightly, or maybe the major. I don't know. You'll tell us the reason why you wrote this book, Mi Ajolote en Casa, which is very inspiring, and I think it's a very important contribution to pet owners and to maybe vets. I think that's for families, for pet owners, for just curious minds. So when you wrote this, which translates as my axolotl at home, what inspired you to write it?
Well, a big inspiration is also the axolots because they are really inspirational animals. But I write it because I saw that many people start loving to have axolots as pets, but I have so many patients because this axolotl was not taken care properly in their home. So I write this to help the people. If you want to have an axolot at home, you can make with this information all the environment right and make it comfortable for the axolotls. And with this, we are going to have axolots healthy and happy.
That's amazing. And I love that because there's nothing better than uh, create awareness, especially to children, that they are probably the ones to say, I want an axolotl for a pet because I saw that in the cartoon. And I think it's very important, very sweet to help children to see, they are animals, they need proper care. And the way to do that is to teach them, okay, they are not just something you throw in any water. You need to know the type of water, the type of environment, the conditions, and all that. And I think you have done a great job telling us there in that book. And I'm just wondering, how do you see education, especially early education, as part of conservation?
I think it's one of the most important things for conservation. I was really lucky because in my early years as a veterinarian, I work in a education department in a zoo that I used to work. And I really love to work with children. In fact, one of the species that I tried to teach the children was the axolotls. So we make puppet plays for the children to tell them about the problem of the axolotls because the main problem of the axolotls is the habitat destruction. So we have to make aware because these child in Mexico City, we live in the same habitat of the species. So if we take care about the water and avoiding pollution, and if you recycle and take care of the environment, you can also protect in the environment of the axolotls. So work with children is it's amazing, and I think when you talk with them and they can be close to the animal and understand that and look at their face and they get in love of the species, you plant seed in the child, and you know that maybe in the future they can help to save the species of the environment that it's around of them. And also, I have the opportunity to work with children with special needs. And what's amazing how the relationship with the axolotls, as I told you, the axolotls are really quiet, relaxed, nice. It's very nice to work with them. And the children was in love with the species.
And I suppose they find them very soothing and just this slow movement. I just love that. And there's something real power in giving accurate and empathic knowledge, especially about a species that is very often misrepresented online. And are you considering doing an English version of it, translating your book? Or maybe I'm just thinking, what are the plans for people in other parts of the world to know more about axolotls?
In fact, I would like to increase the impact of what we have already learned about the axolotls. For me, it's very important to be sure that the animals are well cared. So yes, I will like, and I'm planning to translate the book in English. Will be great. I think we have more impact all around the world, and also a master class to share how we take care of the axolotls well when they are at home.
That'd be brilliant because I think that would be really useful for lots of people to have a real trustworthy material. Not saying that the tutorials in YouTube are not very accurate. I haven't seen them all, but it would be really good that an expert in that spent so many years treating and dealing with axolotls will give us that insight. Would be brilliant. So we will be following that to see how that goes. So please let us know when that is ready, and we'll certainly share that. I would like to now talk about something that is truly at the leading edge, cryopreservation, particularly in axolotls embryos. You and your colleagues recently published a major paper titled Advances in Cryopreservation of Embryos of the Mexican Amphibian Ambystoma mexicanum as a Conservation Strategy. For our listeners who might not be familiar with cryopreservation, can you explain what is this technique about and why freezing embryos matters for conservation?
Sure, of course. You know, I always been a curious person my whole life, so I really love the research, and I hope this can be maybe inspire some child that they are really curious and want to know everything about the world around us. At the beginning, the research was only about the healthy and the care about the axolotls. I used to work in a zoo. There are many species that are in critical endanger, and some of the strategies is try to freeze some cells in order to make a biobank of genetic material of each species. It's maybe as a frozen zoo or as a frozen Noah's Ark.
Wow, so cryopreservation is a tool for kind of genetic safeguarding?
Exactly, exactly.
Oh my gosh, that sounds great.
So we are preserving the genetics of really critical endangered. For example, the giant panda, there are some frozen banks of this, and maybe the animal is not here anymore, but we keep the genetics in there. So maybe we can make an artificial insemination with other animal with these genes and make it work. So this is an strategy that we use with many critical endangered animals. So I work with this in the zoo with many species, with giant pandas, with Mexican wolves, California condor, and other important species here in Mexico. But around the world, it's around gorillas and also rhinos and elephants. We work with these genetic materials. So I start wonder why not make these genetic banks also for amphibians? If almost the half of the amphibians are critically endangered, why don't we try this tool for freeze some genetic resource for a species that is also critical and endangered?
And it makes sense.
Sort of
Yeah.
that is really, really difficult for amphibians. Instead of mammals that we have all the techniques development, we don't have techniques for animals that reproduce by egg. They are viviparous, so it's very hard to freeze an egg and make this egg be live again and continue developing and living. So it's a big challenge for research. So I try to apply all the techniques that I saw with other species and make it happen for the axolotl. And why we are doing this? Because at least here in Mexico, we are losing the genetic diversity of the species. The natural and the original species is very difficult to find out nowadays. We can find axolotls that they are already pink with all the colors, but the natural one, that is the original one of the Xochimilco Lake, is very, very hard to find. So that's why I try to keep this genetic variety, like frozen these cells in order to maybe in the future when we reestablish and we get back all the habitat of the axolotl again, we can take out of these eggs from the freezer, make it development, and get it back to the wild.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. And it sounds like this is real science with profound implications, helping ensure genetic diversity and resilience for species that whose habitats are shrinking. So I find that very interesting.
Hi.
I think that despite the exciting scientific advances, axolotls are critically endangered in nature, especially in Xochimilco Lake. In your book, you mentioned that in Mexico there are 17 different species of axolotls, and all except one are in an endangered category. I understand that many factors have probably contributed to that, so I'm guessing that will have contributed to the axolotls endangered status. I would assume that it has to do with the closeness to Mexico City and how the water can get polluted. That could affect the axolotls' ability to adapt, or that also could be the fact that there's many other species that they are maybe exotic for the area. And so, why don't you tell us a little bit more about those factors and the biggest threats that are there right now?
In the world, we have around 33 different species of axolotls. All of them lives in North America. It means only in Mexico, United States, and Canada. Of these 33 species in Mexico, live 17 species of them. In very parts of Mexico, they also live near from waters and lakes. As you mentioned, and it's really, really sad. About our 17 species, only one is out of being critically endangered. All of them are in this category because the habitat destruction. We are drying the lakes and the rivers. We introduce invasive species, exotic species from Asia and from Africa, especially fishes that we use for food, but they are exotic and invasive species for the habitat. And also, as you said, the water pollution is a really, really big problem because some of these lakes and rivers are really close to the cities or towns. And if we don't make this environmental education, well, sometimes people throw some things, these rivers. So we are fighting and doing everything that we could to make conscious about that and to take care of these water bodies that are in many places in Mexico. So that is the big problem. That's why, as you said, environmental education is our strongest tool to save this species. We are now working more with Ambystoma mexicanum, that is the species that lives here in Mexico City. But also there's other places and the government and universities that also are working to save some of the species In fact, we have a really nice place that also work for conservation. In Michoacan, in the lake of Pátzcuaro, is another species that is a cousin of our Ambystoma mexicanum. It calls Ambystoma dumerili. And this species also calls achoque in the local place. But the main persons that they are working in the conservation, it's a convent of nuns. And these nuns are working with them because the axolotls traditionally they have medical properties, and they make some medicines from these achoques. So they reproduce them, they take care of them, they don't want to be extinct. And now these amazing nuns are a flag of conservation of in Michoacan. So it's very nice that many people are now working in different parts of Mexico trying to save species of axolotls.
Oh, that's amazing. And at the same time, I think it's very important to think, where do we find hope? What signs make us optimistic about the axolotls' future? I know there's a lot of worry about their endangerment, but what would be the positive? Like, what are we doing? I mean, that great job with the nuns, keeping them safe, I suppose, but it's only one of the other species. So, is there anything else that we can be hopeful for?
I think the people that we love conservation and try to work with that, maybe we fight against a lot of challenges. Maybe there's not enough resources or money to make some projects going on around. Sometimes people want to participate, they are very enthusiastic, but sometimes all around is not helping to make it happen. So for conservation, we also have to fight and keep going against many challenges. But I think there is always hope. If we don't have hope, we don't can think maybe in conservation of species and get it back to the habitat. I think if these species are losing their habitat is because of us. It's not a natural process. It's because human has been building cities, using the water, making pollution and other things. It's our own responsibility to make this damage going back, restore what we already destroy. So I think there is hope because
We have the responsibility to look after the species and the places.
Exactly, exactly. And also, even when we have to work hard and many hours, and maybe it is difficult, we have to do it for the right things. And axolot represents a lot of things of Mexico. And I love that the axolots are already found all around the world. And North Ireland, I'm really amazed that you know about our species, and I'm really proud of that because, I think also the axolotl represents a little bit of Mexico.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's many, many reasons why you're here because I personally believe you're an agent of change. Well, I'll get back to that in a moment. But the reason I decided to invite you was because I was just wondering in Lisbon, in a very small place, and I went to a pet shop with my children and we went to see the fish and we went to see the different animals they have. And they had a section that it was just specialized in axolotls. And I thought, what? What's going on here? So I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I don't know if they were probably they are looking them the right way. I'm not sure. I am not an expert, but you probably will have to judge that.
And you know what? That's amazing that you find out in the aquarium near from your home. It's really amazing. I sometimes don't believe that I have some college that already work in, for example, in Japan, in Germany, in the UK, in the United States, in China. They already work with the axolots, and it's really amazing for me that how far the species has gone because they are really, really special species for biologically. And I really hope that all these friends that have axolotls all around the world that also help us to the conservation of the species right here in Mexico. And how can they help us? Well, help us to take care of the environment, of the water. Maybe we are so far, but if you take care of the water and avoid the pollution, it would also help for other amphibian species. Also, you can help us to share good information in social media about the axolotls. A long time ago, I read a phrase from Jacques Cousteau that said more or less, we don't take care of the thing that we don't know and we don't learn. So if we know, if we have enough information, we can make something about the problems.
Absolutely. I think raising awareness of these wee animals that they have the cutest smile and the loveliest little toes and the wee tails. And I mean, I think that's very important to raise awareness about them, that they what they need to live and to thrive, and how we keep them, even if they are in a fish tank or in a lake in the other side of the world. It's about raising awareness of what are people doing about keeping them safe and keeping them alive and keeping them thriving, and the research that's been done and is currently undergoing. So I think it's very important to do that. And looking ahead, what future projects or goals excite you the most? Are they new research directions or maybe collaborations, maybe community initiatives that you are passionate about?
Yes, I really think this conservation works is always have more things to do. And I'm already working with a project that it's already in Xochimilco. It's in the field. We are looking for places that we can get back the axolotls to the habitat. I hope we can do it. But I also am planning to work with another species that lives in Puebla, that it's another town here in Mexico, and they are working with Ambystoma belasi. So we are also trying to work with them and make some research about reproduction and veterinary medicine to keep the animals healthy, to get back to the habitat. So we are also working with community. I love to work with children. In fact, it's a lot of things that we can do that, and we are going to do that. And also this master class to share to other people all around the world how to take care about the axolotls and some advice. And I'm also happy to have feedback, how can they know about the axolotl and share information. I think is also important for future projects and conservation.
I am just loving it because it's touching so many aspects, from local support in Xochimilco to other places like Puebla, like Michoacan. I mean, there's so much to do, but at the same time, it just sounds like very passionate and so interested in keeping education at the core and trying to show children and grown-ups alike why it's important to see these animals as fragile and vulnerable, and that it's all of us responsibility to look after them and to keep them safe, from trying to keep our lakes and rivers clean, and then to teach people who have them captive how to treat them the best way. So I'm loving it. And at the same time, I think that it's kind of redefining conservation because it is using tools like different media to expand the educational outreach. And it's clear to me that in general, in conservation terms, there's so much to do and it is not done yet. There's a question that we ask all our guests, and that is, when you think about your work, not just the science, but its meaning, what still excites you about it?
Oh, really good question. Well, a lot of things. I think when you find out that things that you really love, you get very engaged of this project. I'm really excited about the axolotls. It's my favorite species. I've been very lucky because I've been working with other species when I work in the zoo with them, very kind of. But axolotls are always my favorite because they are fascinating, the calm that they have, and also they are very challenged and difficult species. That's why I love. And I think when you are young, you start watching out what is your passions. Maybe You can find some challenges, and when you already find out, you are always fighting to work with this passion, enthusiastic working with animals. It's amazing. We don't have to forget that the animals has feelings. They are beings. They are so amazing. When you saw an animal in the eyes, even when it's really small as an axolotl of 30 centimeters, you can also see that there's something magic because it's alive, and they respond to the environment, they respond to you. So why don't we respond to the life, to animals? They are also amazing. And well, I would like to add that if someone that is listen to us have an axolotl in their home, they should know that they have really a special animal in there, and they deserve the best care and the best love that we can offer to the axolotls.
I love that. I mean, my kids have been asking me for one, but I'm just so scared because it feels like so daunting. It's a huge difference. It's not like having a dog that you just sit there and that's it. It's all the environment and all the learning you have to do because, as you have said, they're special, they are unique, and there's a lot to learn about it. And I think having a pet, any pet, is a big responsibility that we as grown-ups need to pass that on to children. And the best way to do that is to help them learn. So I believe that the book and the masterclass is really going to help pet owners. And at the same time, I hope it's going to be inspiring a lot of young people that want to become vets, and people who are already vets that want to focus maybe on species conservation. Then again, people who are maybe social advocates, or that they want to help out by cleaning and pushing the community to behave in a different way. There's the policymakers that might have to have stronger views on certain things. So it's very empowering. So before we close today, I want to take a moment to reflect on something that really stayed with me from this conversation. When we talk about agents of change, we often picture big, visible movements like policy shifts and global campaigns and sweeping reforms. But sometimes change begins somewhere much quieter. It could be in a lab, or in a classroom, or in a small aquatic tank where a fragile species is being cared for with an extraordinary precision. What Erika's work reminds me of is that systems change doesn't always start loud. It starts foundational. Erika is not just treating animals. She is building veterinary protocols where none existed. She's creating scientific knowledge that future researchers will stand on. She's freezing embryos to protect genetic diversity for generations we'll never meet. She's writing books so children grow up caring about conservation instead of consuming it. That's not just helping a species, that's changing the system around the species. And Eric is influencing how we educate, how we research, how we design conservation strategies, and how we value biodiversity. And maybe, most importantly, how we feel responsible for life that isn't human. Because when you safeguard something as small as and vulnerable as an axolotl, you're really protecting something much bigger, our relationship with nature itself. And that's what real change looks like. It's science with heart, it's expertise with empathy, it's one person deciding that extinction is not inevitable, and then building tools to prove it. Svarika, thank you for reminding us that conservation isn't only about saving animals, it's about redesigning the future. And to everyone listening, maybe being an agent of change doesn't mean doing everything. Maybe it means choosing one thing, one species, one community, and caring deeply enough to transform the system around it. Until next time, this is Conversations with Agents of Change. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep changing the world. This podcast is produced by the Change Impact Group.